What is up, my friends? Welcome to another macroeconomy report. Okay, this is part 3. We're going to continue to cover many of the things that I brought up in the 2019 trends report. If you haven't downloaded that yet, it is free. There will be a download link underneath this video. What we're going to dive into today is really the concept of the old guard falling apart and of decentralization and what that's actually doing. When we talk about something like decentralization, I know that it's oftentimes rooted in conversation around Bitcoin and cryptocurrency, and everyone thinks that's what we're talking about. But it's actually so much greater than that. You know, the internet itself has led to decentralization. Decentralization of the native power structure that used to exist, that used to pass down and feed all of its subsystems, the information and the knowledge that we then learned. But because of the internet and because of what it's done, it's opened that up, hasn't it? It's decentralized that, hasn't it? Of course it has. Now that is very scary to the native power structure. That is seen as a bad thing to the native power structure. And now, 10 plus years later of internet, we start to have this rise of alternative media. At the same time, this clinching on of the old mainstream media to worn out narratives. And they're going out and they're using their systems that they built on purpose on the internet. They purposefully built or took over all of the popular social media that we have today. Twitter, YouTube, Facebook, WhatsApp, Instagram, Snapchat. They might not have created it, but they have now taken it over. And they refuse to admit that it's now the public square. The town square, where everyone used to meet up in person and talk about these things, is now done on Facebook. It's now done on Twitter. You have to recognize the importance. And so they're trying to censor. They're trying to ban people for ideas, for breaking these vague rules that they've created, inciting violence, racism, anti-Semitism, blah, 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 blah. The game goes on and on and on. While all these other channels and people and voices are left alone and allowed free reign on these platforms. Okay, so it's a continuation of this overall bias and hypocrisy of it's a rule for this guy or this girl over here, but not for these people over there. And it's all based around different agendas. Maybe this is based around different agendas from political parties or from people that work within the company or from within shareholders. I don't know. It doesn't really matter. But what we're seeing here is we're seeing so many different aspects of the old way of doing things attacked all at once. The monetary policy right now is under attack. The media structure and the way that the channels that they used to spread information, whether true or false information, they used to spread that information is under attack. Education itself is under attack. And so naturally, there's going to be not only agendas from the people who are part of the old guard, but there's the people that have spent their whole life subscribing to that way of doing things, subscribing to that model, who are now feeling like their way of life is at jeopardy because of what this innovation represents. And you'll always see this. And these are the people that will defend the schools. They'll defend the mainstream media. They'll defend the dollar. Fractional reserve banking, quantitative easing. It was necessary for the bail-in. We didn't want to see a global recession like in the 1930s. They will defend that with their dying breath. Those aren't fake people. Those aren't bots. Those are real people who are fucking terrified of what this other world represents because they have been a good boy. They've been a good girl. They have gotten in line when asked to get in line. They have raised their hand when asked to raise their hand. Do you understand? These things, they're not good or bad, but you have to understand and recognize that those are the chips that are on the playing field right now. You can't deny that. So let's go through some of this. The big things that I want to talk about around this possible collapsing of the monetary policy and cash itself and the old way of doing things, the biggest opponent to that would be cryptocurrency as a whole. And I'd say specifically Bitcoin represents the biggest threat there. And so we're constantly seeing the old guard and people that represent the old guard trying to tear down Bitcoin. I have 2 specific examples to show you of recent time. Both are equally hilarious, so you will be entertained, believe me. Okay, Nobel Prize economist Joseph whatever, doesn't matter. He's basically saying that we should shut down crypto. I think that was his actual words. I actually think we should shut down the cryptocurrencies. He declared in a video pointing out his opinion of the major deficiencies of the digital currencies like Bitcoin. So they're now, they've been so desperate that at first it started with CEOs and other thought leaders, any presidents, any countries. Those were the first favors that you saw called in through 2017, 2018. If you've been following crypto for a while, you remember all this, okay? The China ban looming every other 15 minutes. Then that didn't really work. That wasn't really as appetizing. So they went down to the second layer, the B string players. And that's all these people. Your Nobel Prize winners, your economists, your laureates, your thises, your that's. Anybody with a blue check mark on Twitter, I think it eventually watered down to. And your blue check marks on Facebook, trying to desperately defend the old way of doing things. Because look at how the argument has shifted. First, it was used for money laundering, used to scam and evade taxes, used because it was 100% decentralized, it was 100% private, and that's a bad thing. It's decentralized, and that's a bad thing. Well, because there's no CEO, they can never fix any of the problems. It could go down to zero because there's no actual value to it. It uses too much energy, but oh wait, it doesn't. And that one, you notice that one especially is kind of dropped the most. There's no value behind it. That's still touted around as the big reason, right? One of the big reasons. And you've seen plenty of people like this. Norel Rubini is a big one that I remember. He's hated Bitcoin since the beginning, and they bring him out to Congress. There are people that get to represent Bitcoin and other cryptocurrencies, but that guy just gets out there and blabs the most obnoxious, ridiculous things that have been proven wrong. He doesn't want to listen, doesn't change his opinion. He's not even good at debating this topic because of his lack of understanding it, which has been proven time and time again. So they should just get somebody better who's better at defending than some of the people that they've gotten. But anyways, this was very recent, so just put that in line with everybody else. And that hit about the same day, maybe a day after, the 2019 Berkshire Hathaway annual shareholders meeting, which was 7 hours long. Absolute frenzy expo. It reminded me of like the Olympia Expo in Vegas, where there's just like literally tens of thousands of people, expo booths everywhere, complete shit show. Yeah, that was pretty much what they did there. So here's some of the things you guys will like that Warren Buffett and Charlie Munger had to say. Well, actually, I got nothing from Warren Buffett this year, but he did chime in on some of the Charlie Munger comments, and he has said it in the past that Bitcoin itself is rat poison squared. Okay, so here's what Charlie Munger said. I've been invited during this gathering to go to a happy hour put on by the Bitcoin people. So do you see the attempted classification and categorization? Bitcoin people. That's like saying the black people, the white people, the fill in the blank people, right? So it's trying to class those as a certain type of people. And I tried to figure out what the Bitcoin people do in their happy hour, and I finally figured it out. They celebrate the life and work of Judas Iscariot, which I had to look this up. I thought what it meant was like when people say you're fucking Judas, meaning that you're a traitor, and I was right. So this is one of the apostles that betrayed Jesus for 30 pieces of silver. So calling someone a Judas is calling them a traitor. Now just imagine for a second we replaced the Bitcoin people with any other race or gender. Do you think this comment would have gone over well? No, right? It would have been instant uproar from the social justice warriors. But instead, this comment was met with extreme laughter from the audience. This was done on live stream, and the whole audience started laughing. This is when Warren chimed in and said, "Oh, does the invite still stand?" So you're literally trying to say that Bitcoin people are traitors. Does that even make sense? Like, why be so aggressive? Why make such a dramatic comment like that if you weren't insanely threatened by it? Because let's be honest, okay, ask yourself this. When there's something out there that you truly just don't give a shit about, do you make comments like that? Or do you just kind of like somebody ask you like, hey, what's your opinion on pink ponies? I don't give a shit. Pink ponies are cool, like my daughter loves them, but outside of that, not really moved by pink ponies, right? But to go out of your way and say like, no, actually, if you like pink ponies, you're a traitor. Would you ever say that? And I get that the example itself is obnoxious, but you get my point, right? Plastic desks, Apple versus Mac, you might get a little bit more emotional, but it's a pretty interesting statement to make that you're calling people traitors. Traitors against what? The old guard? Fiat? The banking system? And then what does that mean? That means that you're essentially pro-banking, which I think is fairly obvious that Berkshire Hathaway is pro-banking, considering how much of their portfolio sits in Wells Fargo, JP Morgan, etc., in the banking sector. So you're calling us traitors because we are not involved in banking, and we don't want banking, and we don't like banking in the old way that it's worked and happened. And it's not ironic that they're also old. And the older you get, the harder it is for you to change a belief, the harder it is for you to see the world differently. Your perspective is pretty locked in, 40, and then 60 gets even harder, 80. I mean, shit's probably damn near impossible, which is also why they've missed literally everything. Google, Apple, Amazon. They're now coincidentally saying that tech itself is that they should have put more emphasis into tech. And they're going really big in Amazon now. Okay, second comment. And I think people who are professional traders that go into trading cryptocurrencies, it's just disgusting, he added. It's like somebody else is trading turds and you decide I can't be left out. But isn't all speculative trading like that? So I get to a degree that, Charlie and Warren, they've never really liked speculators. They are actual investors and they are value investors, okay? They don't dog on stock market trading this way, do they? Forex traders, or at least I've never heard them say things like that. Maybe they have. And yet they're like, it just seems like they're really going out of their way to really talk badly about cryptocurrencies. And what's interesting is that is then rippled out and replicated out. So everybody that follows Charlie and Warren and say, oh my God, you're my hero. Oh my God, you are like the best thing ever on this planet. I follow everything that you do in hopes that I can make money just like you. They will go and rehash this as well because they're not free thinkers. So the internet in and of itself, also to take a step back, has created more free thinking through the decentralization of knowledge, of information, because we're able to get different perspectives. The Bible was transcribed through somebody, wasn't it? So we get to reread the same guy's beliefs and bias and worldviews over and over and over again, which was projected through the storyline in the Bible, whether you want to admit that or not. So the Bible itself is watered down. To what degree, we could obviously speculate about. But my point is that same thing applies with knowledge. We all went to the same schools teaching the same things for so long. And then the internet comes along and says, well, actually, there's a million different ways to look at everything. And it's like, holy shit, what do I do with myself? Which that whole thing that I just described, that whole cycle of awakening is very traumatic for a lot of people. It actually could create some sort of PTSD, post-traumatic stress syndrome. Anyways, so there's the second piece that I want to talk about. So we've got Nobel Prize winners talking badly about decentralization of currency. Okay, we've got Warren Buffett, Charlie Munger, two of the most esteemed idols that are touted around as rock stars now, which I think we're actually getting to the point of peak Berkshire Hathaway or peak hysteria in Warren Buffett kind of world. And so that's why I labeled this newsletter the Warren Buffett Indicator. If you're not subscribed, by the way, quick plug, it is free. Like, you can literally look through all of the old email newsletters that I've sent out for free, and then all you got to do is sign up with your email if you want to get notified when we post. Probably the best idea, instead of like thinking, oh, I'll remember and come back to it, just literally put in an email address. Send out one email a day. It's very content focused, very content centric, and so far the result has been pretty amazing because we get between 22 and 30% open rates every single day, which, ask around, that's pretty insane. Okay, so that's one piece. Monetary policy under attack. We get it, right? You've seen the comments by Jamie Dimon. You've seen the comments by bankers. You've seen the comments by everyone at the Fed, the BIS. We've seen the complete change of positioning to where now they're inviting in a dual currency with some sort of e-money, which seems to be the plan in this next pivot, this next, kind of recession. I don't think there will be that big of a recession, but there will be a pivot, a monetary policy pivot, which will include a digital currency. Okay, and that's called a bail-in. Not as dramatic as 2012 Cyprus, but you're still getting robbed. Okay, so, and most people won't realize that, and so they'll just invite it in without realizing what they're doing. I'm going to bring this back up, which I've shared with you in the past as well, and this is just taking a look at another big focus that I wanted to talk about in this video. And if you hadn't noticed, we're 16 minutes in. This is going to be a little bit longer. We will transcribe the audio as well and put it on the Empire-cast, okay, which will be launching in the next couple weeks. Student debt is one of the most concerning pieces to me, because think of the way that we've just done things up until now. Most of the time, people don't know who they are. They don't know what they want to be. So they listen to the people around them, mom and dad, and everybody else. You should go to college to be this and be a doctor. We want you to be this, make the family proud, blah, blah, blah. So they go and they do these things and commit to these paths, this life path, which has nothing to do with them and more to do with their parents and pride and family name. So that is shifting as well, because There's so many options now that exist for education, and education itself is becoming decentralized. But at the same time, just like everything else, we ourselves as a people are struggling to accept it, which happens a lot of times with change. Right now, we have by far the most terrifying number of student debt, which is about $1.6 trillion in student debt, spread across 45 million borrowers. That is a big number. And guess what? There is no loan forgiveness. Now, we're going to talk about this number down here, but for most people, 99.9%, there is no loan forgiveness. So let's look at some general stats. You know the total, 1.56. 44.7 million Americans with a student loan debt. So they're rounding up there. So 44.7 million is the actual number. 11.5% of student loans are 90 days or more delinquent, aka in default. Average monthly student loan payment, $393. What's the average amount per person? Average of $35,000. Okay, with an average debt of $29,000, including both private and federal debt. Okay. So those are your numbers. Loan forgiveness does not apply to student loans. Why would they do that? You can't go bankrupt and claim your student loan debt. And if they change that rule and invite that in, you're going to have probably at least 11% of the 44 million that's going to claim bankruptcy. And I guarantee it's going to be a lot more. I would say a safe estimate would be at least half. Half of those people, 20 million people, file bankruptcy just to scrub the student loan debt off their record. And then they carry another 7 to 10 years of that tarnish mark. It's like getting a brand on your body. Because I hate to tell you that shit, unless you got somebody sending out letters and demanding it's removed off your credit, it's not after 7 years. It's not removed. It can take up to 10 years. It's really whenever the hell they feel like it. And that can affect a lot of things for you in your life. Getting a house, getting cars, supporting a family. So this one decision, which they allow so many people to recklessly make, in their teens, they allow people to make this decision. Let that sink in. With the guide and assistance of your parents, of course. But if it's your parents' idea to go there to begin with, then of course your parents have no problem with you raising your hand and assigning such a great debt burden to you. Because nobody's really thinking it through. Okay, so here's the amount of people that actually have gone through some sort of debt forgiveness or loan forgiveness. 55 people out of 20,000. And I don't know what's involved. I assume it's insane what's involved. Borrowers who attempted to certify for public service loan forgiveness, 1,055,000 got it. So out of 1,055,000 got it. That attempted it, 55 got it. I don't even know what percentage that is. It's obnoxiously low. Chances are pretty high they're going to try and come up with something for this. It's been talked about more and more, especially by some of the more aggressive candidates for 2020. It was part of the Green Deal by AOC. You get the point though, right? Now, the other side of this is that this is a great burden, yes. But so everyone should be rallying behind decentralized education and learning, right? Well, if that was true, then we wouldn't go over to YouTube and we wouldn't go over to Instagram. We wouldn't go over to Facebook, Twitter, and see every time you got a Ty Lopez maybe that puts up an ad here in my garage talking about reading a book a day, talking about how you need to read more books, how you need to learn from other people, and attempting to share knowledge, share information. Not saying he's a good guy, just using him as an example. If people were really ready for decentralized education, then that guy would be celebrated. And he is by a small demographic, and there's also a demographic of people who hate him. Go look at his ads. Go look at the comment section. Fraud, bullshit, scam. The 4-letter word that is the most obnoxiously used, scam. Go look at anyone trying to train you in cryptocurrency, trying to train you in Forex. Now, granted, there was a lot of scammers in the decentralized learning and education economy, but there is also a large amount of people who have gone out, spent the time, spent the money, invested, and learned, and now want to share that with you. That's what you're seeing in your Instagram feed with these people who have now they're smart enough to know that they got to put their advertisements, they got to put their training and information programs in front of you, in front of the right demographic of people who are ready. At least they hope. And they're basing it off of filtering, which is fairly good on Facebook, not so good on a lot of other platforms, but you get my point. Now they're putting themselves out there and they're willing to share this for a price that's very differently structured than what we're used to with school in education. And let's not forget the K through 12 is utterly garbage education, and that's why it's free. free is never free. And what does it come with? What's all the sacrifice it comes with? Lunches every day, getting told what to do every day, getting told when you can use the toilet, getting told if you're smart or stupid, you should put your kid on Ritalin or attention deficit medicine, your son has special needs. They're glorified babysitters, and that's not an insult to teachers. They are capped and restricted based on the rules being passed down to them. It is the system itself. And you got these guys that are, some of them are good, like I said, some of them are bad, but look at the comments that they get, which proves what? It proves that there's still a demographic of people who cannot let go of the old way of doing things. They cannot let go of the old way of learning, of education. We need those people to upgrade their minds. We need those people to surrender and let go and accept that this is happening. This is actually going to hold back society as time goes on. How are we going to get into space? How are we going to live on other planets? Whether you believe that, I had somebody comment on this, I got to talk about this now. Whether you believe that the earth is round or flat, or that there's an inner earth or inner dimensions or alternate realities, doesn't really matter. I think we can all agree that there's some other stuff out there besides our stuff, and you can live on that stuff. They have different organisms on those things, on that stuff. Okay, is that the simplest way to explain it? Maybe, maybe not. So yes, I believe there's other worlds, maybe we don't call them planets, but other spaces that are inhabited by different organisms. A collection of cells, a collection of single cell organisms that all come together and create bigger things like us. But maybe they don't look like us, maybe they don't smell like us, right? If we are to do that and join this intergalactic realm, so to say, we need to advance, right? We need to grow. And we cannot grow if we are getting caught up at who's the enemy, playing the blame game and pointing fingers, can we? And we definitely can't get there by only accepting one way of doing things and only accepting one way of learning, only accepting one form of currency, one way of doing monetary, and one way of doing information, knowledge, education, right? We have to accept new ways because there's a ton of people who love Tai Lopez and there's a ton of people who hate him. That's just how it is. You got to kind of be bold enough to put yourself out there based on your beliefs, ideals, and worldviews, and just accept that no matter which way you sit, there is no winning everyone over anymore. There is no sitting neutral anymore. You're in the game. Everyone's in the game. They've all been dragged off the sidelines to choose a side and choose an opinion. That's what you see happening right now. Social media is the driver of it. So all those things, by the way, I talked about all the way in December 2018 in my 2019 trend report. I don't like to toot my own horn that much about trying to be some big prophet. That's not really my goal or intention. I more like to use logic and natural direction that I see things already flowing and try to extrapolate out on that and scale that out. What's that look like over the next 12 months? Where's that really going to take us? Is there big milestones on that path, and what do those look like? And trying to predict and bring attention to those things. I think if nothing else, reading something like that, listening to a video like what I just gave you here, opens up your creativity. And if it does nothing more than that, gets you to think more, gets you to ask a question or two to yourself about yourself, then we won. I did my job with this video, right? So that's all I got for you. I just wanted to share that with you because, one, human behavior fascinates me. Human behavior is what moves markets. If the market has human beings involved, that's where you look to see what the market cycle is going to do and be. And once you've identified that, then you can start to leverage that for profit. That is how people actually make money in the stock market. That is how people actually make money in real estate. They understand that it is run by humans. They see the trends. They see the pitfalls and the potential pitfalls on this timeline of events, and they're just making micro predictions and adjusting those predictions every single day. And over time, with enough experience, they start to look pretty smart. That's all that is. Okay, that's all I've got. So what I'd love to ask right now is just to share this video. If you can think of somebody who would love to listen to this, just literally forward this to them. There's the options right underneath this video on YouTube, or give them the name of this episode on the podcast and they can download it themselves and listen to all the past and future episodes as well. But just share this around. That's all I ask. If you got something to say, go ahead and comment below on YouTube. And if you're brand new and you'd like to subscribe because you want to be in the know, get the notifications, then you hit the subscribe button. But what I would suggest is if you really want to get in with the Empire community, then go ahead and check out empireresearch.group. Subscribe for free. You just add your email address. You get instant access to our Discord. You get the 2019 trend report, you get the Bitcoin report, you get all kinds of stuff. And you get free access to our Discord, which is really where I hang out. And you get the daily emails. So it's insane the amount of value. I'm sure you'd agree. Give us a shot. If you don't like it, you can always just unsub, right? You can always just leave the Discord. And that's it. Thanks so much for tuning in. Much love, my friends. Bye.